I knew Hogwarts Legacy was going to be great fun right when in the first few hours I completely forgot that I was in the Harry Potter universe, and Hogwarts itself, the towering castle, the school of wizards, dragged me into its extremely well realized and built world. With interesting characters, phenomenal voice acting, and a combat that feels just right with a good balance of attack and defense spells, all animated in ways that you almost feel in sync with the character, almost wanting to jump with them in front of your TV as you unleash one devastating spell after another at your foes. There's nothing entirely normal in the wizarding world, of course. You have arrived at the school as a 5th year pupil in the 1890s, apparently the first to be admitted at such a late stage. Before term started, you'd been under the care of the mysterious Professor Fig, but your background is otherwise something of a question mark. You also just happen to be able to wield powerful ancient magic that others cannot. Of course, your exploits do not go unnoticed by the forces of evil, in this case the Goblin Ranrock, who seem determined to harness the magic for themselves. Their never-ending army of goons, along with all manner of fantastic beasts, will put your wand work to the test as you make use of a growing arsenal of spells to defeat your foes. Of course, the unforgivable curses are there too if you're feeling the call for the dark side. How exactly using Avada Kedavra differs ethically from hurling an explosive barrel at someone's head is presumably for the Ministry of Magic to decide, but they both seem to be pretty unforgivable to me. On the whole, however, the game manages to ride a difficult line between offering meaningful, punchy combat and telling a sympathetic story from the perspective of a teenage student. The castle and grounds are faithfully rendered and expanded. Devoted fans may sort themselves into Hufflepuff just to see what the common room looks like. And there is no shortage of fan service. The Weasleys are there in the form of Deputy Headmistress and an explosion-prone pupil, while Potterish round-rimmed glasses are conspicuously available, but it's all sufficiently adorned in the late 19th century styling to feel novel. And there's also the whole of Hogsmeade and the wider Hogwarts Valley to explore. The story itself is twofold, one of Ranrock and the threat he shadows over Hogwarts and beyond, and the other about the loyal followers of Ranrock. These are those who have rebelled against wand holders. They make up most of your enemies in the game, wielding power and spells themselves that you will need to fight against. Before your story begins properly, Hogwarts Legacy starts with some character creation. There are very few limits to this customization feature. If you don't care how you look and you are an absolute anarchist, there are presets you can choose. If you do not want to look like your witch or wizard in-game, then get ready to adjust face shapes, hairstyles, complexions, eyes, and voice pitch. You can choose between two voices, and as an addition then change the pitch of the voice that suits your preference. If I have to be honest, the pitch change does make the voice sound slightly robotic and tinny. I did choose a tinny voice and you do get used to it, but it is a shame that this couldn't have been slightly enhanced because it is rather jarring at first. Similarly to the cosmetics, there are a few features in this suite that don't seem to be optimized properly, and this may be resolved in a patch, but how my character looked in character creations and how they look in cutscenes is night and day. The team behind Hogwarts Legacy have already boasted about the game having over 100 hours of content if you want to complete absolutely everything. With a story averaging around 35 hours, this game has all the depth. Luckily for the first few hours, your hand is held quite tightly. Don't get me wrong, I was actually itching to explore by myself, but I was very grateful for the walkthrough. Hogwarts Legacy does a fine job of showing you the capabilities of your character and the depth of gameplay involved. You feel very contained, like a small fragile baby bird, before being let out into your first taste of adventure. Storytelling is captured through narrative cutscenes and draws so many parallels between you as the player and Harry within the films, offering a familiar experience. You are gifted a Wizard's Field Guide by the Deputy Headmaster, in which everything you learn is safely tucked in there. It's your virtual handbook and also stashes away your inventory, challenges, maps, skill points, and collectibles, in which the list is nearly never ending. Field pages are scattered in Hogwarts and beyond, and offer experience points and lore when found. It's kind of like your own encyclopedia of Hogwarts, offering the opportunity to practice magic and educate yourself on the wizarding world. Experience points will increase your wizard level, and this in turn increases your power as a witch or wizard, offering tiered rewards mostly in the form of cosmetics. To complete the story, you will have to continue to increase your wizard level through challenges and missions. Hogwarts Legacy has a variety of side missions that encapsulates both both the story and environment well. I personally have not felt bored by any of the side quests activities, and these can be done at your own pace. So let's talk about the combat. The combat and spellcasting is one of the most exciting mechanics in Hogwarts Legacy. Just a flick of your wand feels slick. Your character changes stance every time they flick their wrist, and by doing so it looks incredibly cool. To learn spells, you will first need to guide your cursor along the spell shape to the end. While steadying your wand, there will be symbols you will need to hit, similar to quick time events, before a flurry of red smoke catches up. Once you've reached the end, the spell is learned and you are able to practice this in game. This is a mechanic I assumed would get harder as the game progresses to more advanced spells, but it never really does. The smoke never increases in pace, making precision more important as you progress, and the symbol pattern doesn't become any more complex. Eventually this just becomes a bit of a gimmick that could have been skipped. The spells fall under categories such as damage and utility, and those categories are ordered by color. Players can create loadouts so they can be cast under certain buttons. At the beginning of your journey, it is actually very frustrating to continue to change your loadout, but this can be amended when you unlock talents which act as skill points. You will then have the opportunity to map multiple loadouts, therefore it eventually being a case of just swapping the loadouts as opposed to jumping menus for the sake of opening one door or vanishing one pile of chairs. The combat is extremely intuitive and offers much more of a challenge than likely anticipated from a Hogwarts game. You simply cannot and will not get away with button smashing your way through battles. Enemies can defend themselves with shields, and those shields can only be penetrated by the accompanying color of spell. Players will need to reactively learn how to block and parry if they are going to achieve the higher difficulties of this game. In the early game, your enemies are your classmates. As you practice in the world, you will encounter a variety of enemies, mostly consisting of goblins, beast poachers, and creatures of the Forbidden Forest and lakes. You will come across the odd boss battle, I won't spoil them, scattered every few hours. I don't really have arachnophobia, but if you do, bear in mind there are plenty of spiders. It is a fantastic feeling when hits land and enemies fall. You do feel unstoppable and rewarded with raw material for crafting. Players can read about weaknesses of enemies in their field guide to ready themselves down the line. In enemy-ridden areas or bandit camps, players can use spells to implore stealth-like abilities instead of going on full force attacks. You can adapt it to your playstyle most of the time. When combat is as central to the experience as it is, this makes defense and offense integral. In Hogwarts Legacy, your offense and defense skills are all within the clothes you wear. Whether it be mythical glasses, fancy robes, slick patterned gloves, each item will have a value in increased or decreased strength. But it is hilarious to see your attire in cutscenes when you have crazy dragon glasses fitted with artisan robes and bright blue gloves. The only bugbear is the limited inventory you can hold. This can eventually be increased by discovering more of your ancient magic secrets and completing challenges around this called Merlin challenges, but with very infrequent shops to sell these at, you mostly end up destroying them. Interestingly, you do have the ability to have some creatures help you out, or even drink potions to enhance your defense or power. A caveat to this is that you are not able to craft these in hand. You will either have to create potion desks or head back to the room of requirements potions class to do this. This means you can go in completely blind to a mission, not as ready as you would like to be, with no means other than sheer hope to find a health potion. In some areas you won't be able to exit them until they've been completed. Okay, so if we're going to talk about the open world a little bit, one thing that is quite important to note is the bugbear many people may have with the open world games that have character levels, and that is the bottlenecking of side quests to complete story. As the story progresses, you will have a recommended level for the mission in order to be able to comfortably complete it. Whilst I don't think it is as harsh as other games such as Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where players need to complete a good chunk of side missions to progress the story, I'm getting to the point where I will need to complete a few side quests to increase my level to not have my wand shoved out of my hand in big boss battles. This is something to keep in mind if you're just wanting to run the story, although it would be a huge loss if you did just this, as you wouldn't cover the beautiful landscapes and environments Hogwarts Legacy has to offer. Sadly, Quidditch has been cancelled for the year, which begs the question if we will see this in some sort of DLC in the future. However, flying brooms and mystical beasts are at your disposal once you acquire them. As you are a late bloomer here at Hogwarts, it has been arranged that you will receive extra tuition tuition by the professors. This is the way your character will learn spellcasting in addition to attending classes. It kind of felt strange of a decision to bring your character in the 5th year. There were only so many times I could actually buy the premise that everyone in class needed to go over the basics again. If we're going for immersion, this makes much more sense in 2nd or 3rd year. However, hearing the 3rd professor make up some random quip about how the summer made them potentially forget basic skills they would have been doing for 5 years got kinda old and is a bit of a stretch to believe eventually. Hogwarts Legacy has painted a picture of an RPG open world adventure. While it is exactly that, mimicking a lot of mechanics from popular open world games such as Assassin's Creed, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, with open world maps, bandit camps, and intricate combat. With real-time seedlings to nurture, ingredients to wield for potions, and loads of explorations, it almost felt like it was shown off as a slice of life wizard sim offering the ultimate Harry Potter experience. To an extent, sure. You choose your own house, your own wand type, certain dialogue pieces, rare beasts, go exploring, fly a broom, and so on. However, the story is intricate and complex, woven within everything you do. Each player is heading for the same shared goal. This is not an Animal Crossing blend with wizarding life at Hogwarts. It's much more God of War Hogwarts. And it does really beg the question, is this the Harry Potter game everyone wanted? It certainly surprised me with its direction, and while I am finding it thoroughly enjoyable, I feel acutely aware of the many people who may feel surprised at the type of game this actually is. Eventually, classes turn into cutscenes, growing plants and brewing potions become more hassle than just buying them, and I have not yet seen a difference in my actions for dialogue. Of course, that doesn't mean that there isn't any, but nearly 20 hours in, the only minor difference I have seen is that I can be a little bit mean to fellow classmates. And I guess that brings us to the environments. So it would be desertive not to mention the glorious and wonderful visuals of Hogwarts Legacy, as well as the places there are to discover. If you worry you won't be able to visit or explore the castle, the lakes, or major plot locations like Hogsmeade, then let me put your mind at ease. This map is huge, and it is absolutely yours to explore. Everything is accessible, and Hogwarts Legacy does a fantastic job of not overwhelming you with areas all at once. Even though you enter the castle relatively early on, there will be a lot you cannot do yet due to the spells you have not yet learned. There is much detail within every room, corridor, from violins that play themselves, arguing knights standing guard, interactable tea breaks. Every inch of your screen will be alive in some way. There are tons of Easter eggs for fans, and I think it would be difficult to feel disappointed with the visuals and fidelity of the environments. Especially when you're airbound, taking in the very landscape that you once imagined from paper. There are some easily recognizable nooks, such as the lake where Harry sees his Patronus, the famous bridge, and the courtyards. This is constantly complemented with the soundtrack that is made up purely of those familiar instruments, songs, and notes in the series. There is so much to say about Hogwarts Legacy, so much that the player has to explore, complete, and do. I honestly had a lot more fun with this game than I expected, and the combat was surprisingly deep, with the world built amazingly. Is this a huge contender for my game of the year? Absolutely yes. Is it a perfect game? No, it isn't, but it is really up there. There are certain design choices and mechanics that felt off, and I still will stand by my point that this game is perhaps not the game a lot of players are expecting. There are things that I would have loved to have seen here that is just not here. I would have liked a heavier lean on the RPG side, making it more individual to each player, for example. That being said, it does not in any way take away the enjoyment I have had so far playing it. It has been over 10 years since we have seen a Harry Potter video game on consoles. With the technology we have today, this will be a dream come true for some. It's difficult not to love anything that comes from such a meaningful and beloved franchise from many. I hope that it is also the beginning of a new start to the world and what it can still offer to fans 12 years after the final film. I will score this game a comfortable 8 out of 10. Definitely worth the full price tag, as if you're a fan of fantasy, Harry Potter, or in general a good open world game, this will satisfy all those cravings. Listen guys, thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you did and subscribe to the channel for more awesome videos in the future. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.